Hello and welcome to Corran on the Horn. I'm here with Mr. Steve. Is it Steve or Steven Sanders?
Yeah, I go by Steve usually.
Steve. Okay. Yeah, Steve Sanders. Um, it's very early in the morning for me. It is a normal time for him. If you notice our different energy levels. Steve recently won the Advocate Award. He's sort of one of those people who's very very helpful in the community, but also doesn't spend 18 hours a day on the Star Wars CCG Slack. So we don't. I don't know him super well. I wanted to. I always like to, if I can, interview people who maybe don't get noticed otherwise. Steve, how'd you get started with Star Wars cards?
Well, yeah, thanks, Kendall. Excited to be on your show. I've been listening for a while to the podcast. So, thanks for having me. I got started in Star Wars CCG, probably like a lot of people, when I saw somebody playing the premier two-player game on the elementary school playground when what must have been like early 1996. Pretty sure they're playing the rules completely wrong since they had only two sites out, and I believe they thought they could only have two sites out in the game. But anyway, so that was like super entranced by this. I'd never played any kind of like tabletop game. I was in fifth grade, and I convinced my mom to go buy me the two-player game at Toys R Us, and I've been playing off and on ever since.
So, there was a time when I would play decks with only one site because I was smart enough to realize that they were Destiny Zero, and you don't want a bunch of zeros floating around in your deck.
You don't want those, no.
I wasn't smart enough to realize that, like, you want to activate more than 3/4 a turn. But
no, it's funny. Like I taught myself to play from the rule book in that set, and the key rule that I got wrong about SWCCG until I went to my first tournament was I thought a force drain literally drained that little lightsaber icon off of the location, and so you drain it's gone, you can't activate anymore. So all of my games were like massive force choke control games until I went to a tournament, and they're like, no, that's not how it works. I'm like, oh, thank God, that's so much better.
Yeah, the way I got force drains wrong. One, I thought you always had to pay to drain.
Oh,
and I don't know where I got that idea, and I don't know, at what point I realized I was wrong. I know one of the times I realized I was wrong was in like 2013 when I came back to the game that time around. But thinking back, I may have figured it out at a prior time, when I was playing, but then just forgot.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, there was a time when I was in elementary school where I thought all of your life force was your force pile.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So anytime, yeah. So like so that first force that you activated, you could never ever use it for anything because then because that your life force would be completely gone.
Yeah, it would be fun to do another separate show just on like all of the misconceptions people had about this game when they were in like elementary, middle school.
Yeah. Or like for April Fool's Day or something, if somebody could program that into GEMP, program some of the wrong rules into GEMP, that would be
amazing.
That would be good. Some stuff with
No,
attrition.
back on the history of my game. So like I grew up in Southern California in San Diego, and so I played a lot of local tournaments in that area up through pretty much through the end of the game. I didn't have the chance to travel much for the game. I did we had Comic-Con, of course, in San Diego, so I played some of the events that Decipher put on down there at Comic-Con, which is cool. But I played up until the end of the game and the end of Decipher in the game, and actually was super excited when I heard about the Players Committee starting and printed off those first virtual slips, and was pretty active with the Players Committee. In college, I was a tournament director for a while with the Players Committee up in the Bay Area where I went to college, San Francisco Bay Area. So I ran tournaments up through, I want to say 2007 when I graduated. And then because of moving across country for work and all kinds of stuff, I Yeah, I wasn't able to play as much for probably about a decade. Mostly just worked on collecting and finishing my sets. Until like a lot of people sort of began looking back into it around COVID, thinking about things that I missed doing. And then when Worlds came around in the Washington D.C. area where I was living, it's like, oh, I got to go to this. Like all the things I missed doing, I wanted to reemerge and start doing again after COVID. This is definitely like one of them. So
Mhm.
went to that, played in the retro event, met you there, got to meet Jared in person, who I think I traded with him a while back, but I had never met him in person. And yeah, like met Matt Manning and a bunch of other people and started to plug back in and began running the retro league after that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure actually that you are responsible from the one anecdote that I tell everybody from that tournament. And I'm gonna blame it on one, lack of like playtesting, but two, like
Hmm.
I was sleep deprived and living on McDoubles at that tournament, so
Yeah, I heard your podcast about that.
I
Yeah,
was not 100%. But I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that you're the one where I was playing. I was playing Hunt Down, and we were playing
Mhm.
each other, and we get about 3 turns in, and you're like, "So when do we start losing from Visage?"
That might be. Yeah, that was actually my first time playing with physical cards. I played a little bit on Gambit, first time with physical
Uh,
cards in like 10 years.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, and maybe I did not remember about Visage until like, yeah, shouldn't that be pinging us both at some
Yeah,
point
yeah.
here?
Well, and it's not your that's certainly not your
Yeah.
responsibility. It's my responsibility. I think we were all a lot of us. It wasn't my first time playing in person since the
Mhm.
pandemic, but it was one of the first times,
Yeah.
and it was and I had not played a lot of Hunt Down, so those triggers
Right.
that you have to remind your opponent of, um, they were a thing. It's
Yeah.
I'm a court player, and there were
Hmm.
a lot of times back in the day that I would miss
Hmm.
those. So so you run the retro league.
Yeah.
Do you play open, or do you mostly just hang out in the retro area?
I do play a little bit of open. I play mostly retro, and that's partially just because I haven't devoted the time to learning the open meta. But I do have open decks built, and I occasionally pop in and play
Mhm.
some games. I played some open actually. I was on a work trip to Brussels in November and met up with the local players there in Brussels, Belgium. Played open with them. So yeah, I do. I want to play more of it. I'm certainly not opposed to it.
Mhm.
Like I said, I was playing with virtual cards from the beginning up until just before the reset. I think it was really like the reset and me like kind of drifting away from playing when the reset happened and then coming
Mhm.
back to it like 2021. I was like, ooh, that's a lot of virtual sets to learn. And just need to like commit to like learning the meta. And I think this is the year I'm going to do it. But yeah, I played the Java Cup a couple times and I played various other open tournaments. I do want to get back into it more.
Okay. Um. So it's interesting to me that because you're far from the only one who returned to the game
Hmm.
and gravitated towards retro. Personally, for me, the retro formats, like, some of them feel more like Star Wars cards than others, and when I say
Hmm.
that, I mean, like, are defined by things like playing characters to sites and battling and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
With all of the my thoughts on that for new players is always that it's better to just learn the current open meta.
Hmm.
One, because like that's where you're going to get eventually, and two, uh because because then you don't have to worry about insert cards in revolution and
Yeah,
order to engage and all the
all the
cards that are
bad
shielded
stuff.
and are
Yeah,
essentially banned. Like, you
yeah,
just
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
So you can focus on learning the stuff that you need to know versus the stuff that you don't need
Hmm.
to know.
Hmm.
As somebody who primarily plays retro, am I wrong?
I don't think necessarily wrong. I think there's different schools of thought. The first thing I would say is like for anybody who thinks playing retro is like easier, it is not easier. Like particularly like Premier Hoth, which is what we're playing in the Retro League right now, is not an easier format to play than like Premier Death Star 2, or I think it's much harder than playing Open. It's just yeah, because you have all those like really broken cards. It's really all about like trying to figure out which bad card your opponent has in his hand at any one moment and play around that. But no, I think the one thing I would say, two things I would say. First is that if you're a player who played in the Decipher era only, and maybe you didn't even play all the way through the Decipher, maybe you drifted off in Special Edition or Endor or Death Star 2, then I think there is something to be said for at least getting your feet wet with stuff that you remember, and you have like some muscle memory for those cards. And I think when I look through old collections or get people back in, I see like a lot of people they drifted away on Endor Death Star 2.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll know more of the cards. And the other thing I would say is that this is actually something that I forget, somebody, maybe Charles Hickey, mentioned on Matt Manning's YouTube show a couple days ago, is that if you really want to like understand the way this game has evolved and has got to the point where it got in Premier Death Star 2, the end of the Decipher era, into the Players Committee sets, like why the game is doing what it's doing. There's something to be said for playing through some of those early sets and getting some of the fundamentals down of just like you deploy your locations, your characters, and then you see where some of the pivot points are, or some of the broken cards are. Then you find out why those cards had counters later, why they got shielded, and where we got to where we are. So if you like playing through a little bit of the history of the game, I think can be useful and can help you build your skills up. But I also don't think it's wrong to just dive into Open and just like commit to learning the current meta. And there have been people who've been very successful with that too. So there's not, it's like, obviously if you're playing Magic the Gathering, you're not going to tell people, just play Alpha through Ice Age, do that first, and then, give it some time, and you'll get it. That would be ridiculous to try to play through every Magic set. But with Star Wars, I do think there's like some things that it's good to see the trajectory of the game. So they use arguments for either side.
Yeah, it's like I always think of, so I have another podcast that's called Beyond Bulbasaur about Pokemon, where I talk about a random Pokemon on every episode. And the reason for that title is that a lot of Pokemon fan projects want to do them in order, and Bulbasaur is obviously Pokemon number 1, and they get to about Ivysaur and then they peter out, or they get through the starters and so like there's a lot of content on those first 10 or 20 Pokemon, and there's not a lot that goes further out. So I think or like when people want to read the expanded universe, they either go back to the very, very beginning of the timeline and they're like, well, we'll start with Dawn of the Jedi, and or they do some variant of release order and they start with the Thrawn trilogy, which there's varying levels of whether that's the right call, but and no two people are going to say the same places to start. It's interesting that when you're talking about not just retro but those really, really early formats. I certainly see value in familiarizing yourself with that and the fundamentals of the game, but I can't see myself ever playing in a Premier Hoth tournament. I think probably the earliest I would be able to get, I could see myself playing in a Premier only tournament just for like kind of the novelty and because that's the very beginning. But I could not see myself going earlier than about Special Edition.
I can see that. I mean, Premier only is way worse than Premier Hoth, though, because with Premier only, you have no counters whatsoever. The stuff like Scanning Crew but anyway, I'm Premier Hoth
again for the novelty.
Very different. Premier Hoth has really grown on me. It's gotten to the point where it might be like my second favorite retro meta. It's so chess-like. It's such a tight format. There's no margin for error in this game in Premier Hoth. Whereas I feel like later metas are a little more forgiving. Obviously, you get to set up more stuff in the beginning. And no, but teach their own. But I think Premier Hoth is pretty fun, actually.
I played in the premiere to Death Star 2 retro event at Worlds or something. I think it was Worlds last year. I played against somebody, and I was playing a hunt down deck that Justin Desai had done something with, and I was copying his list, and my opponent commented that that deck was not something that would have been played in 2000. It's it definitely takes influence from the styles of modern decks and things. When you're looking at various retro metas, do you feel like people gravitate towards, because my light side deck was Matt Sokol's world championship deck. So do you feel like people gravitate towards like those lists from 20 years ago when they're playing in retro, or are people building new things? And if they're building new things, are they seeing success with that?
Yeah, I think there has been I don't think the retro metas right now are exact copy and pastes of what they were in the Decipher era. I have looked at like some of the deck tech records and compared them to what people are playing now. Well, for one thing, with GIMP you have unlimited copies of cards, and so people are not cutting any corners with cards based on rarity or what they have in their collection. When people did do that back then, people just didn't have, even like top players didn't have like six. Emperor Palpatines, or not to run six Emperor Palpatines, but you know what I mean. That's one difference.
Well, six Emperor Palpatines, probably Dark Surgeon probably plays about that, right?
Yeah, probably that's true. So there are some differences. I'm not as good of a meta analyzer as like someone like Andy Talago could probably quote this more. But the other differences, I think, is because of people like Andy and others on YouTube who have dissected these metas in great detail. People are using those videos and then like tuning their decks around those videos to beat them, which I think is a bit different than in the era when you were reading like Scry Magazine or decktech.net as your only example. So I think that's another difference. But then another thing we're doing is we are toying with ban lists and some changes to the metas. Like for Premier Reflections 2, at the Worlds tournament in 2021, it was just dominated. Liza was dominated by Watch Your Step as it was back in 2001 or whatever that was, 2000 I think. We've banned the last year in 2023, we banned Watch Your Step and Agents of the Black Sun in Premier Reflections 2 to see how things changed, and then we'll do that again this year. And then for Premier Cloud City, we're banning numbers cards and a couple other things like Asteroid Sanctuary. There's a small ban list of like 6 cards. Take them out and see how the format changes. So like that Premier Cloud City format is going to be nothing like what people were playing in 1987 for sure.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think that overall the retro community has been pretty flexible about ban lists in a way that would not have been popular back in the 90s.
Right. Yeah, I'll bet that Premier Reflections 2 format would look a lot closer to Premier Death Star 2, which is
it does, yes,
which is a really solid format. I was really surprised because you don't have, when I played Premier Death Star 2, you don't have quite as many tools for the like balancy, because I feel like Decipher was always trying to move towards the game being defined by battles and force drains.
Yeah.
And then they would print these filler cards, and then occasionally a filler card would just be busted and completely warp everything. But it was like Premier Death Star 2, it was like still mostly defined by the battling and force draining, but then there were a handful of belligerent cards, but it still felt like Star Wars cards.
Yeah. Reflections 2 with Watch Step and Agents of the Black Sun taken out, it felt a lot like Death Star 2. The big issue is that Hidden Base, not Hidden Base, Hunt Down was super overpowering in it, a little more than we expected, and that's because you have no escape and some really good dark side cards from Reflections 2, and no escape is turning off Honor of the Jedi, which holds Hunt Down a little more in check in Premier Death Star 2. Anyway, so that's something to think about too. But yeah, I think overall, Premier Reflections 2 is a pretty good format with Watcher Step and Agents of the Black Sun taken out because you get that great gameplay plus the really cool expanded universe cards from
Mhm.
Reflections 2.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You say that no escape like warps it because Honor of the Jedi also
Hmm.
another perspective would be that Honor of the Jedi and Premiere to Death Star 2
Yeah,
makes Hunt Down struggle because
it's true.
because of the way that it warps things because
Yeah, yeah,
I had at that last year's Worlds Retro I had a game where I couldn't find, or well, no, there was no escape because it was Premiere to Death Star 2. So I can't, I couldn't find something. I think I was playing Sense, or I would think I was playing Sense and Alter, even
yeah,
though Hunt Down adds to the
yeah,
destinies.
yeah.
And I couldn't find my Alter for their hunt, for their, and he killed my Vader too. So I was losing to my own Visage all game
Yeah.
and
Ooh, rough.
it was
Yeah.
otherwise like a pretty tight game, a pretty close game. Considering, or maybe he didn't kill my Vaders like all like, but we were trading back and forth, and so Vader wasn't always on the table. So
Right.
sometimes I was losing to my own cards. So how was it that you got that you how'd you end up in charge of the Retro League?
Yeah, I think Jared put out a call to the community to see if there'd be anybody who'd like to assist him with setting up a new retro league. And it was like it was like December of 2021. I was still pretty like on a high from going to Worlds, and it seemed like the right way to plug back in. Yeah, I mean like it's online stuff is a little bit easier for me because I have a couple of young kids, so my ability to travel is like not as much as I'd like. And I knew I was going to be moving abroad again soon for work. So yeah, this made sense. And I pinged him on it, and he was up for it. I think the first year I was definitely in like apprentice mode with him, learning about the tournament software and how to like manage a big event like this. And then over the last couple of years, I've sort of run it more and more on my own, and that's just been really, really great.
With the tournament software, have you ever accidentally deleted the tournament?
No, I haven't. But last year there was some kind of a really weird bug where it would like refuse to save results after round three, and I was like, oh, and so I couldn't. It was the last event, and so I just had to like keep it on my browser window open, and every single time, without fail, somebody would close the browser window, so I'd have to like rebuild it. I probably rebuilt that tournament like the last three rounds like 7 times, but
Mm.
fortunately, I found the tip out there is that it looks like Firefox. It is much more stable in Firefox than Chrome. Yeah, this year I'm only using Firefox for it. I know it can kind of glitch out in big events, but we have 73 people playing right now, and it's been stable in Firefox. So I'm glad to see
Mhm.
that.
That's good. That's good to hear. I've used it at local events a handful of times, and yeah, too often,
Yeah,
too often. Yeah, I mean, just the browser gets closed or whatever,
yeah,
and and or it just like or it just like reset, like it just refreshes the page.
yep,
Like
yep.
I think when I've done it on my phone, sometimes it'll refresh the page,
Oh, I can see that
and
happening. Yeah, yeah.
and then that doesn't, or at least it didn't do. I don't know. I haven't. I always pawn it off to somebody else now because I screwed it up enough times that that I let somebody else worry about it.
Yeah.
Let me think. Oh, what do you think of this newfangled Premiere to Tatooine format?
I think it is. I'm gonna play in it because I don't think I really played much of that set right when it came out. I think it was I don't know what was going on with me back in that in like was that 2001. But I didn't play when it was just premiere through Tatooine. So I'm excited to try it. Yeah, pod racing is going to be horrible. They're not banning pod racing, right? That's going to be part of it.
Not in the current version.
Okay.
It's not banned.
That sounds rough. I am gonna probably run the episode one objectives because I've never played either. If the trace was correct or what's the light side one? Is it just hyperdrive? Yeah, that
Well,
one.
hyperdrive is from Coruscant.
Oh, is that from Coruscant? Is there
Yeah.
an objective from?
There's
There's
actually
no
no
objective, is there?
objectives
Yeah.
in Tatooine. Yeah.
Oh, really? They're both from Coruscant.
If the trace was correct, is an epic event.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But you can start because you start the I will find them quickly and it pulls if the trace was correct.
Okay.
And
Right.
then
There's no objectives from Tatooine. Okay.
and then the pod racing cards are also epic events.
Oh, then I'm not sure I'm going to play that. I got to think about it more. But I definitely want to. I want to run the Tatooine Mall, which I have never. I don't think I've ever run the non-virtual version of that. So yeah, I'll figure something out. But
he's one of my favorite cards.
He looks super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, and you can Watch Your Step is good in the format.
It is. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I can get through those parts showing. Yeah, there's I'll think of something. I'm actually a lot more pro the episode 1 sets than a lot of the other people in the retro community. I just think those cards they look great. They are fun. A lot of the non-broken ones are fun to play with. And I guess I like Phantom Menace more than some people. So I don't know.
I guess my thing is like with the episode 1 cards.
Mm-hmm.
Senate is Senate, which is questionable, but like specifically like the maintenance cards and some of the other just cards that are very powerful.
Yeah.
Like they're powerful in a way. It's just power creep, and you can address power creep in virtual sets by meet power creep with power creep. Just
exactly.
Make more strong cards. And again, for me, the game should be defined by battling in force trains and
definitely. Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and move into the Pivo questionnaire that I ask everyone. I'm scrambling because it's early in the morning, so hopefully I remember all the questions.
Okay.
First question: what is your favorite card?
Yeah, I was expecting this one. I've been thinking about that a lot. There's a lot of ways to define those. Some really cool cards with pictures and more like history with them. But I think my favorite card is Trample. And I'm going to tell you why. Like, I think this card it's powerful, but it's really well designed and balanced, particularly for a card early in the game. Like obviously it's great because you can play it any time, and you can basically make any character lost immediately if you can just draw straight up Destiny over their ability. So it's balanced in that there's no +1 to Destiny or +2 to Destiny. It's just straight Destiny draw over ability. You can take on undercover spies, any kind of scrub, but it requires like commitment to it by deploying an expensive walker, and it's obviously vulnerable to sense. But it has a Destiny 4. It cycles. There's just a lot of really cool things about that card. So I'm gonna go with Trample, and the image is cool, particularly foiled.
What's your least favorite card?
Ooh, probably Scanning Crew, because it just has it requires no commitment from the player to use it. You can play it on turn 1 and rip the best thing out of their hand. And then with in the early metas when there's no counters for it or very rickety counters for it, people can run an unlimited ones and just lock out the light side player. So it goes against exactly which kind of stuff you're saying with the game about battles and force trains, because it just deprives people of let's suppose the rebels need to play it. So yeah, boo to Scanning Crew.
What sorts of cards stimulate your creativity?
I think I definitely gravitate to thematic, things that replicate the movies. So I like Walker Garrison decks. I was just playing that in Primitive Hoth, so I was thinking about that because that directly recreates some scenes I like in the movie. I like other cards that I guess I like cards that seem like they take a lot to get going, but the payoff is very powerful. So I've been messing around with Quiet Mining Colony a bit because it is not an easy card, an objective to set up, but if you can get it going, the ability to pull any card into your force pile is very powerful. So cards require you to quite a bit of setup, but then the payoff is very, very good. I want to try to make those work.
Okay. What sorts of cards make you want to quit the game?
Let's see. I don't think they make me want to quit the game exactly, but let me think here. Well, I mean, yeah, things like Senate, for instance. I think I didn't like that when it came out. I still don't like playing against it because it's your opponent is playing a different game than you are, a different and not fun game. So it makes you not be able to play the deck that you want to play in a not fun kind of way. So like I'm all about decks that like force your opponent off balance or make them adjust their game plan, but not decks that make your opponent play a game that's not Star Wars cards, basically.
Okay. What is your favorite Star Wars term?
Ooh, for the franchise or for the game?
However, interpret
Oh,
the
okay.
question however you like.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Uh, I don't know. Sometimes I get a kick out of saying like brave but foolish in a Count Dooku kind of way.
Okay. What opponent's deck do you love to see?
Oh, yeah. Um, uh, let's see. I like seeing Prophet across the other side of the table because I think that's always going to be a good fair battle ahead of me. So when I'm playing Dark Side, I always love to see Prophet regardless of what I'm playing. When I'm light side, I yeah, probably something like Bring 'Em Before Me. I always enjoy playing against that deck because I know it pretty well and I know what takes to deal with it. I also know it's going to be generally a pretty fair fight. It's also a fun deck because I think it exists in open as well as in retro, so and it plays decently similarly. So it's fun to see that deck show up.
Okay. What opponent's deck do you hate to see?
Mm. In retro, I am not really a fan of playing against Mind What You Have Learned. And I really don't like playing it either. I've played it occasionally over the years. It's like not really a fun game, fun to play against because they're kind of solitaring until they can stack the right destiny number they want, the 0, the 7, whatever they're going for, and then they're just going to try to put together the right combination of cards in their very small reserve deck to have one blow up battle at the end. And they either do that or they don't, and it's really not. I don't find it to be fun to play against.
Um, what Star Wars job would you want to try?
Oh, okay. Um, this probably sounds pretty evil, but the ISB as it's depicted in Andor seems like a really crazy but sort of interesting bureaucracy to be a part of. So in an amoral world, if I could just dip into it, yeah, I'd be an ISB agent for a little bit.
Okay. That's really interesting because I think the point of if I understand Andor correctly, the point of it is that that job is frustrating and bureaucratic. But I mean,
Maybe at the higher
yeah,
level, I think the what's her name, the agent who is I forget her name right now, who is one of the more main characters. Her job seems pretty fascinating, but not the little guys.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah, yeah. I don't. I Andor's not my favorite show, so I don't need to
Okay,
analyze it
yeah.
too deeply. But I do. But yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think I I will say that it the way that if you're a cynical person,
Hmm.
there's a lot of jobs that are very similar to that to that exists in
There
the
are
world.
there are indeed,
If
yes.
you're a cynical person,
Yeah.
because part of the point of that is that you get,
Yeah, there's definitely some
if you
commentary.
actually
Yeah.
want to be
Yeah.
if you actually want to do your job right, you could end up getting punished. Um, what Star Wars job would you want to avoid?
Um, yeah, anything on the Death Star or whatever the Empire or First Order's latest super weapon is, I would not want to be recruited to that because I've seen where that stuff goes.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, lots of feel like it'd be like taking a job at Tesla right now. Um, lots of risk involved from both sides too. Like if you're a Death Star gunner and one of the 100 people doesn't flip the switch, then Tarkin kills one of you.
Yes, that's right.
Like, and if you move up too high in the organization, then you get killed by Vader. And then of course, these rebels, they like blowing up their giant spheres.
Yes.
And finally, if sort of, pie in the sky, what would you like to see with the future of the game?
I think I would like to bridge the gap between the retro and the open community more. Myself, I want to get into playing open more, but I think I would like to see, it won't be this year, but if we do Retro League again next year, us to do a retro event that uses maybe the virtual set zero package. Because that is retro now. Those cards, a lot of them are quite old now.
Depending on your definition,
to allow people to bridge the gap, and at the very end of the year, if they've done Premier Reflections 2, play with that base set of virtual cards and sort of ease themselves into open. And I think that'd be fun. I think, obviously, it's not my choice alone. We do a survey every year to see what people are interested in, and I think we pitched it last year, and I'm hoping to build support for that idea, maybe in Retro 25.
I'd really like to see the original set 1 at some point done at an event, to see what things looked like in 2002 or whatever.
Yeah, we talked about that as well. That'll be that just those 6 cards. Is that set 1 or is that set, or like the one after that? I can't remember.
That's what I think it's it's like something like 6 cards,
like Blaster Rack, Luke Skywalker, Vader. Those. Definitely, that'd be really fun.
I mean, I'd be open to other stuff too, but like specifically that that iconic 1 page.
Make
definitely. Them have graphics, use the old style.
I found one of my slips of like just the gray, like the gray and black light side one the other day. Yeah, no, those are fun, especially like just the ability to pull a matching weapon out, and that was like really groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah. Doug Taylor said that he was very excited by that, and I mean the Luke Skywalker basically hasn't changed.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for doing this.
Absolutely, it's been fun.
I'm gonna go walk the dog and get ready for work. Hopefully,
sounds great.
Hopefully, I don't randomly fall asleep again. But this was a fun one. And thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, good luck, have fun, and no reverts.
Thanks, Kendall.
This podcast is a production of the KendallCast Podcast Network. You can support the show for just $2 a month at patreon.com/KendallCast or make a direct donation through the PayPal link at kendallcast.ninja. Every little bit helps.